Chapter 8. Shadows of Doubt. Nightfall revealed exceptional beauty. The setting sun tinted Greenfield in shades of orange and rose, and shadows resembled fingers across the landscape. Birds sang their evening songs with unusual harmony, while Rosalind continued her meticulous documentation. The scientific part of her mind cataloged observable phenomena, temperature fluctuations and barometric pressure changes. The other part saw meanings beyond measurement. "Miss Rosalind," Mrs. Barrett said, "there are automobiles approaching, 3 of them." Rosalind looked up from her notes, disoriented by the intrusion of reality. She moved closer to the windows to get a better view as headlights wound up the hill, their progress deliberate. Who would come at this hour? She speculated aloud. The lead automobile, Doctor. Caldwell's practical Ford arrived at the gravel drive first. The physician emerged, clutching his medical bag, his features drawn and weary. Behind him followed Professor Merrick, discharging not only him, but Father Caruso and Mrs. Fairchild. The third vehicle, an unfamiliar truck with wooden sides, carried additional friends Rosalind recognized. "Dr. Caldwell," she called. "What brings you all here?" "Forgive the intrusion." He approached with a professional composure that failed to mask his concern. "Certain phenomena have been observed, lights in vivid colors above the hill. A good deal of townspeople reported seeing the conservatory shimmer." These weren't random curiosity seekers. These individuals were Greenfield's backbone, its physician, their spiritual leader, an esteemed professor at the college, and concerned citizens, people her grandmother had served faithfully. Dr. Caldwell deferred to Father Caruso, who gave a discreet nod. "That's why we've come," the physician said, "to understand what affects our community." "Besides other reasons," Professor Merrick added. Rosalind led them inside, where Mrs. Barrett had arranged additional chairs, as if expecting the gathering. Her foresight no longer surprised Rosalind. Years serving Elizabeth Drew had likely accustomed her to prepare for the unpredictable. Edmund walked in, his coat faintly damp from the nighttime mist. "Good evening," he paused. "What's going on?" Relief bubbled in her chest at the sight of him, solid, familiar, and steadying. "Mr. Winterborne." Rosalind closed the distance between them. "These are neighbors concerned about unusual occurrences. Some are seeing colors and shimmering lights." She named each visitor, and Edmund acknowledged them. "Your concern shows admirable responsibility." He addressed the group, then turned to Rosalind. "However, there's more at stake than shimmering lights. Professor Ellsworth came to the university laboratory this afternoon with troubling news." "What about?" Rosalind asked. "His latest tests show the foxglove derivatives may have unforeseen side effects. He's challenging your methods and the safety of every medicinal herb you've ever provided." A tremor passed through her before she stilled it. "We've used these preparations for years, without incident." "He's demanding a formal investigation. He's presented evidence that appears, on the surface, concerning. Your credentials are being questioned." "His accusations are preposterous," Dr. Caldwell said. "These remedies saved half the town during the influenza. Is he referring to the hospital, too?" Edmund nodded. "Yes. Everything." "Professor Ellsworth allotted me a few months to prove my methods," Rosalind replied. "Ellsworth changed his mind, which is the main reason I'm here," Professor Merrick said. "The board is suspending any collaborations with you, pending investigation. In addition, they've requested all your grandmother's journals for examination." He swiveled to Edmund. "How can you know any of this? I only received word hours ago. I intended to deliver the news myself." Edmund met Merrick's scowl with one of his own. "I stopped by the university late this afternoon. Professor Ellsworth was visiting from Northampton and wanted to speak with me. He seemed eager. I listened, nothing more." "Those journals contain generations of insight," Rosalind whispered. "All our family's knowledge and notes." The thought of skeptical academics dissecting and discarding any wisdom they couldn't identify made her physically ill. Father Caruso's voice cut through the conversation. "This seems a convenient attack by Professor Ellsworth. One might find the timing and motivation suspicious." Mrs. Fairchild tapped her wedding ring. "My husband mentioned Ellsworth has connections to Atlantic Botanical Laboratories. They've wanted your property for years, Miss Drew. We all know that." Rosalind searched Edmund's expression for any sign of a strategy. He offered only the tightened jaw of a man calculating risk. "If the board rules against you," he said quietly, "your academic ties may be cut." His voice lowered further. "You could lose everything." She crossed the greenhouse, the others in her wake. The flowers' petals trembled, animated by an unknown invitation, as they assembled in silence. "What is that plant?" Mrs. Fairchild edged closer, despite Dr. Caldwell's restraining hand. "Is this part of your research, Miss Drew?" Edmund placed himself between the visitors and the flower. "This specimen is still being documented," he said smoothly. Dr. Caldwell stooped to study the leaves. "Fascinating. Not native to this region." "Not native to any region recorded in conventional texts," Edmund corrected. Father Caruso folded his hands in front of him. "When I was a seminary student in Rome, I saw illustrations in ancient manuscripts. The monks termed them fiori dell'anima, soul flowers. They resembled this flower." Rosalind's gaze moved from face to face. "If the university walks away, so does access to treatments I've spent years refining. Not theories, not data. Real remedies for real people. Many don't have the luxury of alternatives." "What of these side effects he claims to have discovered?" Dr. Caldwell inquired. "Ellsworth suggests that certain compounds in the derivatives may cause neurological disturbances," Edmund responded. "Neurological disturbances?" Mrs. Fairchild echoed incredulously. "I used Rosalind's remedy for palpitations last autumn. There was nothing neurologically disturbed about finally being able to climb my own stairs without my heart racing." Others murmured about their own experiences. Their support encouraged her, though it didn't address the challenge Professor Ellsworth had mounted. "When does he expect the journals?" Rosalind questioned. "Tomorrow morning," Merrick replied. "A courier will arrive at 9 o'clock. Dr. Caldwell threw up his hands. "That's absurd. That leaves no time for proper preparation or legal consultation." "Precisely the point," Edmund replied. "They're hoping to catch you unprepared, Rosalind." "If I may." Father Caruso clasped his fingers, his eyes lifting. "This strikes me as a matter for prayer. Shall we take a moment to seek guidance?" The visitors grew quiet, and Rosalind lowered her head, reciting the whispered blessing. Edmund's lips moved in a way that hinted that he was praying too. Even Professor Merrick, whose church affiliation lay elsewhere, bowed his head as Father Caruso began the Lord's Prayer. When he finished, Rosalind said, "Thank you all for coming and sharing your concerns. Tonight I must review the journals before they're taken, so I can't visit any longer." Dr. Caldwell squeezed her shoulder. "I'll confer with my hospital colleagues. Many will vouch for the efficacy of your preparations." One by one, they departed until only Edmund remained. "I should have warned you sooner." He stared into the deepening darkness outside the glass walls. "Ellsworth's sudden concerns provide convenient leverage for you selling." The timing isn't coincidental, is it? Rosalind stepped to his side. Finally, spring truly returns to Greenfield, and suddenly they're investigating my research and challenging my competence. Science and wonder once walked hand in hand. Currently one seeks to banish the other, Edmund murmured. Once they take the journals, they'll find more questions than answers. Notes about plants responding to music and unusual growth cycles. Precisely, evidence they can use to discredit you. Rosalind crossed to her grandmother's desk, her fingers skimming over the leather bindings of beloved journals. I can't lose this place, Edmund. Her mind flashed to Mrs. Sullivan's arthritic hands, who now could knit again, to little Charlie's persistent cough, eased by her herbal syrup, to Father Caruso's strengthened heart. The conservatory served Greenfield in ways Atlantic Botanical's sterile laboratories never would. What if? Edmund hesitated. She met his stare. What if what? What if we sped up the process? He nodded toward the flower. It's nearly ready. With the right conditions, it could bloom tonight. Expectation flickered, then faded. How does that help against Professor Ellsworth's accusations? This flower is a symbol of what's possible. Your grandmother saw it bloom, and after that she stood up to those who wanted to control this place. Mrs. Barrett came into the doorway, her practical presence a steadying counterpoint to their conversation. The flower is changing, she announced, and there's someone at the gate. Rosalind tensed. Who? Professor Ellsworth says he couldn't wait until morning and wants to secure the journals tonight. I sincerely doubt that the board works at night. Isn't he supposed to send a courier? Apparently not. Mrs. Barrett faltered. He refuses to leave. I told him you weren't available and suggested he return during proper business hours, but he's very insistent. Stall him, Edmund instructed, his tone calm. Tell him Miss Drew is gathering the requested materials. In the meantime, he can wait in his car. He faced Rosalind. We have little time. The flower should be close to blooming. How? He motioned to the copper pitcher. Water from the well and your grandmother's insight. Plants need care and conviction. She did as he instructed and began pouring the water with trembling fingers. Panic threatened to surface, the same suffocating fear she'd experienced when her grandmother's stroke had left her alone, with the future of the conservatory in her inexperienced hands. For weeks afterward, she'd woken, gasping from nightmares where her family's legacy crumbled to dust while townspeople watched with disappointed faces. She'd sworn that she would never fail, never let down the people who depended on it. That same terror clawed at her chest, the fear of failing not only herself, but the Drew women and the entire community that had trusted them. What does watering accomplish? She asked. How does a single flower stop Professor Ellsworth from taking all my family worked for? Because when it blooms, it shows what they refuse to believe. That intention matters. Your work isn't theory. It's living proof. Proof that your research is authentic and alive, a fact even Ellsworth can't discredit. Ever faintly, the bud at the center of the flower pulsed, responding to the moisture, to the warmth, to the hands that tended it.